Welcome back to Sunday Nation. Let's bring in Melody Baetens. She's the restaurant critic for the Detroit News and a reporter as well. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You know, I follow your reviews in the paper. Certainly, I'm a foodie, and of course, I like the concept and the idea of looking at different restaurants. And you know, I used to watch a lot of Anthony Bourdain in terms of just going around the globe and looking at all this, you know, different list of recipes and, you know, food that people have and so forth. But just to bring it back to context here in Michigan, you do this weekly bi-monthly selection of the best restaurants or restaurants that are opening up. I want to begin by talking about just before COVID, where restaurants were and where they are now, because I've been reading a lot about just how restaurants have bitten the dust in the wake of the pandemic.
Yeah, right before COVID, you know, the industry was strong. There was a few surprise closings in early 2020, like Gold Cash Gold in Corktown. That was a popular restaurant that just kind of closed out of the blue and was a little bit surprising. You know, some closings weren't surprising, but it was kind of just stable and exciting. We were getting some national attention from the James Beard Awards and Food and Wine and other, you know, Bon Appetit national publications. Yeah, and then the pandemic happened and everything changed.
Yeah, you know, I've read that many restaurants have bitten the dust. I'm just wondering, because you talk to these restaurant owners and so forth. I mean, you know, what's been their reaction to everything that, you know, COVID has presented for them?
Right, it's very varied. For every type of person, there's a restaurant owner that has a different outlook on it. But they all say that it's detrimental.
Yeah.
There was a number put out by the Michigan Restaurant Lodging Association that said 3,000 restaurants closed in 2020, and they based that on national numbers. It's really hard to get a good grip on how many restaurants actually closed, because they don't tell you. They don't send out a press release when they close.
Yeah,
they don't,
that's true.
And you can kind of, you know, determine by how many liquor licenses there are, but not every restaurant has one. And there's all kinds of, you know, food trucks, pop-ups, cafes, all this. So it was really hard. In my experience, you know, a lot of places closed in 2020, but just as many closed in 2021 and 2022, and we're still seeing it. Those that weren't closed by the shutdown, by not being able to have their dining room open, they still faced, you know, supply chain issues, staffing issues.
Products not arriving on time.
Exactly.
People not showing up for work.
Yeah, bringing customers back and navigating mask rules, social distancing rules, people misbehaving, you know, customers being entitled, things like that.
Do they feel that they're kind of perhaps in an ebb and slow moment, where it's almost like an ebb and slow for them right now with the economy?
Yes, I think they're taking it, you know, one day at a time, one quarter at a time. I've seen a lot of pivoting, changing, streamlining, lots of places going more fast casual, ordering online, where they have a lot more control over like who can order when, and they can just turn that on and off like a faucet. So that if they don't have the staff, then they can say, we're going to do lunchtime, and then shut it off until dinner. You
know, it's interesting, and it may not be directly connected to it, but I've shared this experience before. I've stayed, you know, in hotels traveling, where, you know, I wake up in the morning and then, you know, you're headed to the breakfast, right? And then the hotel folks tell you, well, there's no breakfast because we don't have a staff. So the hospitality industry, of course, which the restaurant industry is a part of, has been, you know, greatly affected by the pandemic.
Yes, hotels, hospitality, all factors of it have been, you know, negatively affected by it. And whether that's because people got, you know, they stayed home, sheltered in place, and then found other avenues of ways to make money, decided that it was their time to retire from the hospitality industry, decided they wanted to go into something else. There was an added stress. You know, you've got maybe a bus person or a server that's making a tipped out wage of a couple dollars, and if they can only serve half the restaurant, or the customers aren't coming back, or they don't want to tip, you know, and plus they have to tell people to put their masks on. You know, there's a lot of added, in that first couple years, there was a lot of added duties for workers that already weren't getting paid a whole lot.
So let's go into your writings here, because you get to do the selection, you get to pick, And I take it that you eat at some of these restaurants as well?
Yeah, I eat a lot of restaurants. I'm very lucky.
That's nice. I should come along sometime.
Yeah, come on with me.
But let's talk about that though. When you go to some of these restaurants though, what is the talk about walk us through the process though in terms of how you select these restaurants, because I'm sure they're happy to have a reporter, a food critic come in to do a critique of their restaurant because you're giving them publicity as well.
Sure, yeah. So for a review, I try my very best to make it so they don't know I'm coming. I don't tell them.
Okay.
If they've invited me, I'll say, oh, sure, we'll talk about it. You know, we'll figure something out.
Right.
Because I want to have the experience that you or anyone would have at the restaurant. I want, you know, service-wise, food-wise, you know, if someone does say, oh, aren't you from, you know, the news, they can't change the whole restaurant in a split second. So it's not that detrimental, but I do try to just come in as anyone else. And then, you know, afterwards, I talk to them and try to get a sense of what's the story. Why does this restaurant exist? Who owns it? Why should people go there? And how can they go there and how can they approach it to have the best experience? Like where to park, what type of clothes are people wearing, what's a good thing to order, you know, do they have a bar, do they, you know, add on automatic gratuity, you know, things like that, just so people know what to expect, because going out to eat it's a special thing for a lot of people. Some people don't do it very much at all. Some people do it all the time and it's their hobby. So to spend that money, and it is a lot of money a lot of times, I just try to give people the best and the most information so they have the best experience.
Yeah, so let's look at Detroit though with the restaurants. I mean, I think there are lots of new restaurants that have come up in the wake of this pandemic too.
Yes, lots of new restaurants all over, not just downtown, but in the neighborhoods, the suburbs, lots of food trucks, lots of pop-up chefs. I think that the pandemic has
forced people to be creative, more innovative.
And shown chefs and creative people, especially young people, that you don't have to fill up a brick and mortar space with tables and chairs and staff it. You can have a Friday night pop-up at a club. You can have a Sunday night brunch pop-up at a brewery or something. You can do how your business fits you. You know, to make it the most effective. You don't have to do it this old-fashioned way.
So what is the reaction when you write your articles on these restaurants and they found out, oh wow, she was here?
They're usually pretty excited. You know, sometimes they don't care, but that's fine. You know, we have a conversation. I don't want anyone to be surprised that their restaurant or their business is in the newspaper.
Because, I mean, reviews are important.
Yeah. It's for other things, you know, other stories, you know, because it's not always a review. Sometimes I like to tell a story. Like this week I told a story about a restaurant owner in Dearborn Heights. He's a Syrian immigrant. He owns a Japanese restaurant, and the pandemic did not stymie him at all. He's expanding. So I went in there and talked to him, and you know, he obviously knew I was a reporter. So that's a different just style of telling these stories of these restaurants, that it didn't, you know, a review didn't really fit with this place. The food's great, but it was more about talking to him and telling the story and sharing the news of what's happening within the business.
Yeah. Well, you know, the other thing that I think is unique about what you do, normally, you know, and this is what I found out, and that is restaurant reviews, or perhaps looking at even different eateries, you know, you normally find it in national magazines, right? So when you travel into New York, to New Orleans or somewhere, you know, you would have read a magazine at the airport that says, you know, check this restaurant when you fly in. So you don't normally, and I think that's what is unique here. You're giving people an opportunity to see, you know, inside these restaurants and what it is.
Exactly. And I loved when people come from out of town and say, oh, you're the restaurant critic, where do I eat? It's like, well, let me tell you, what do you like to eat? Where are you staying? Where's your hotel?
But so here's the difficulty though, because you do have a bias, or you don't have a bias.
Right. Exactly. I try to, in my reporting, I try to go to as many types of restaurants, cuisine-wise. Type of people that own them, all different races, backgrounds, you know, man, woman, all different ages, all different levels in there. You know, have they owned a restaurant have they owned a restaurant for 2 months, 2 years, 20 years? Different neighborhoods, even the suburbs. You know, I found even some really great restaurants in Macomb County where people perceive this to be this, you know, strip mall, you know, chain restaurant mecca. It's really not. There's a lot of good independent restaurants and immigrant-owned restaurants in Macomb County. So I like to, you know, write about things that people may have heard of to get a deeper look at them, and then also write about places that people haven't heard of that I think they should know more about.
So you do this bi-monthly?
I do 2 restaurant reviews a month. You know, that was my plan. I started just before the pandemic, so it's been broken up here and there. And then, breaking news, sometimes I'll do a guide, where to find this type of cuisine or this item. But just keeping people informed. Always write something that has a good, delicious-looking photo and keep people intrigued and share the news.
Food is an essential part of life. But let me ask you this then. So you do the annual Best Restaurant?
Yeah, at the end of the year, usually in December, I like to just put out a list of my favorite new restaurants that opened in the last 12 months.
What's the criteria here? Because I'm sure if the restaurant owners are watching, they're probably wondering like, okay, how do we get to be on that list? What is the criteria? Is there a metric? What's the,
Pretty basic. I try to stick to the Tri-County. Because Ann Arbor area really is its own atmosphere and whole different dining scene. So I try to stick to the Tri-County area. It has to be a new restaurant. It has to be original, no chains, no second locations. And I have to have heard about it. I do my best to find out about restaurants that have opened, not just the ones that have a ton of Instagram followers or publicists, but ones that really, are just existing. And that involves a lot of driving around, a lot of scouring the internet. Thankfully, a lot of people on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram tell me about new restaurants. A lot of my friends are always looking out for new stuff. So it's hard to go to every single restaurant that opens, but I try to at least give it a look. And I like to pick, my last list had places from, Dearborn to Shelby Township, downtown, mom and pop places to more, places that put in tens and tens of thousands of dollars, just a wide variety to really showcase and kind of take a snapshot of the year in dining.
So when how many restaurants do you go to a week? I mean, you do it bi-weekly?
2 or 3, yeah.
2 or 3 a week.
Yeah. Depends on where the news takes me. Right.
But I'm just curious though. So when you walk in, you sit down and you order food and I mean, what are you looking for?
I'm looking for that the food is what it's described as on the menu.
Not just an empty PR, right?
Yeah.
No, because I have been to restaurants where I have been disappointed.
Yeah.
The presentation digitally is great, and then when you go in like, okay, this is not what I saw on Google. This is not what I saw online.
Right. It's not their polished Instagram with the lighting and everything.
Glossy photos and everything.
No, I service should be consistent. The food should be what it says what it's projecting to be, what it says it's on the menu, the type of cuisine that they are putting out there. It should be delicious. It should be seasoned right. It should be, as I ordered, people have dietary restrictions or just preferences. And if they're not too outrageous, they should be, get the order right, But also, is this restaurant needed? Is it doing something for the community? Does it fit in with the community? Is it serving a purpose here? Just the whole package. But, I usually have a great time when I go to restaurants, and I'm pretty upbeat, and I like to go out to eat and tell people stories,
But I think that's a great gig to be able to be a restaurant.
I'm very lucky.
It's a great gig. So it's wonderful, and I wanted you in here to talk to us, just go through with us in terms of just what you go through and how this process unveils itself and how you end up writing about these restaurants, because I know people read and they want to know where's the latest eatery for them to go and and grab a bite.
Some of my favorites as of late. I would say some that come to mind that I've written about fairly recently. Freya in kind of the New Center area, which is a they do like a tasting menu basically, and you sit down and they just you tell them if you're a vegetarian or if you'll eat fish or if you'll eat anything. And they kind of just
called?
Freya. Great mocktails, non-alcoholic drinks, great alcoholic drinks. The service style there is so cool that it's almost like everyone in the restaurant is your server. They just kind of all work together, and the dishes are amazing. For a tasting menu, those can be pretty high priced. I think it's pretty reasonable. And then around the corner from Freya, not too far, Bo Bob Fair, also in New Center, is just a great East African restaurant with delicious food. I love their smoky beans and their coconut rice, so good. And they've got a great story. Immigrants from Burundi opened a restaurant in Detroit, and they've just been getting all this national attention. They were on Chopped. They won Chopped on the Food Network and won like $10,000 and donated it to charity. Very cool. The food's good too. That's a popular spot there.
So
yeah, I go on and on.
I know it's, and I'm just thinking, it's like the ability to go to all these different restaurants and taste this, have a taste of this different, foods from, different parts of the world. It's almost as if you're traveling without actually physically traveling to those countries, because you have a variety of taste of what those cultures look like.
And that's one of the best things about doing this job in Detroit is West African, East African, all on Woodward, right there in News Center.
Right.
Polish food, Greek food. I love Greek food. Syrian
Syrian
food, Middle Eastern.
Japanese,
Japanese. We have all kinds of amazing, Madison Heights itself is full of all kinds of great Asian restaurants, mom and pop businesses. You really can go anywhere in the world and stay in Metro Detroit food-wise.
Yeah. Well put. Look, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'll have to have you back because, I'm always looking for new places to grab a bite.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Melody Baetens is the restaurant critic, of course, reporter at the Detroit News. Thank you so much for tuning in to Sunday Nation. If it is Sunday, it is Sunday Nation here on MyTV38 WADL-Detroit. I'm Bankole Thompson. Have a great week.